We are in Champions League, man.
That was my next
Dilly din, dilly dong, come on.
Encara Messi, 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 gol, 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 gol.
Into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it.
I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
This is the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast with Gary Curneen.
Hello, welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. My name is Gary Curneen. This is number 9 in our series of culture podcasts. So we've teamed up with World Strides Excel, who are the industry leader in international soccer tours, with over 15 years experience delivering soccer tours for a range of clientele, schools, clubs, coaches. Very easily done. You pick the country or countries, and their experts will customise a trip that includes competitive matches, training sessions, tickets to pro games, sightseeing and much more. They also offer a quality level of support, including financial assistance, liability coverage, hassle-free travel and easy registration. So not only are we doing these culture podcasts with World Strides, we're also teaming up with them to bring you the first ever Modern Soccer Coach Education Tour to Barcelona on February 6th to February 12th, 2019. So really excited about that. They are going to bring a group of coaches together from around the world to visit Barcelona, look at the academy structure, the local federation, coach education events, and then take in the experience with a couple of professional games and of course visit the new camp as well. So been wanting to do Spain for a long time and really excited to do the trip with a group of coaches who are as passionate about the game and development as myself. So details about that will be coming up very, very shortly, and we will have registration open, should be at the end of the month. So our guest for today's show is Andy Reid. He's a recently retired professional player with a career spanning almost 20 years in the Premier League with Nottingham Forest, Spurs, Charlton Athletic and Sunderland. He's represented Ireland at youth and international levels and is now the assistant coach with the under-18 national team. Our chat today is about Andy's experience in the game and Irish football in general, the type of player he was, how that player was developed, the reason why he chose the academy he did, the importance in balance in life, and the experiences he had with certain coaches. Some brilliant stuff here. You're going to really, really enjoy this. Andy's insight is outstanding, and he goes into great depth about how we should be developing the next generation of people, not just players. So a lot of brilliant stuff here. Excited as always to hear what you think about it. Please, please, please let me know on Twitter at Gary Curneen, on Instagram at Gary Curneen. Please don't leave without giving it a rating on the iTunes page and spreading the word of the podcast. Always appreciate you listening. Always appreciate you helping spread the word. Thanks so much. Here's Andy. Enjoy. Andy, thanks so much for joining me today for the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. Excited to have you on.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we've been planning it for a bit, so it's good to finally get around to it.
First question for you. You moved to an English academy, obviously from Ireland, and you chose Forest ahead of United and Arsenal and other big clubs. Curious to see why exactly that was. Was it the style of play? Was it the opportunity to get first team football? Or was there something about the environment there?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of all three of them, really. I went over to Man United and I went to Arsenal, and there was probably kind of 80 kids there on a trial week. So, to kind of get a look in, even in a trial environment was pretty difficult. Whereas you flip that on its head, and I went over to Forest. Some of the trials that I went over there, I was training with the youth team, and they threw you in to see what you could do. So I always felt that there was more opportunities for me at Forest to get into the first team. There was a better pathway, I believed, was there. The coaching style was really, really good. Initially when I went over, we had John Perkins as a youth team manager, and then by the time I'd signed, then Paul Hart had come in. And I'm not too sure if you're familiar with Paul, but obviously Paul is one of the best coaches of young players that I've ever come across. So I was very, very lucky to be able to go into that learning environment that he created, and he was a fantastic coach. So All them things made me feel that Forest was the right place to me. When my mum and dad came over to have a look at where we're going to be staying and get a feel for the club, they were of the same opinion. They left thinking, saying they were saying to me, we really like you to go there. We feel comfortable with you going there. We think it's the right place. So it was a no brainer. If the truth be told.
You said, they mentioned there Paul Hart. I read a quote where you said, I wrote this one down. He was brilliant. I don't think anyone could have given me a better football education, not just technically or regards to positional sense, but in terms of football etiquette as well, how you conduct yourself on and off the field. Can you talk about that football etiquette?
Yeah, well. Listen, probably the best example that I would give you was when when he took over as first team manager. He got everybody in the whole club together, staff, players, everybody, and he made it clear in no uncertain terms that everybody needed to be respectful to everybody else. So if you're passing somebody in the morning, you say good morning to them. You get to know people's names of people working at the club. He was really, really big on that. Um, because he'd experienced that because he played under Brian Clough at Forest, so he'd experienced that real family kind of community spirit within the club where everybody knew everybody and everybody respected everybody, and he was really big on that, and I thought it was fantastic, and it gave us a really good footing, as I said. Other things that I can give you an example of: if you're walking through the training ground or if you're walking to the stadium and there's a piece of paper on the ground or a bit of litter, pick it up and put it in the bin. This is your environment to learn. So you create what you want from it. And all them things were very, very important. Some people might not see that as very, very important, but if you get everybody pulling in the same direction, everybody keeping the place tidy, everybody knows everybody else. Good morning, Jane. How are you? That kind of thing. It creates a real good environment, and it stands you in good stead. Then, kind of moving forward, helps you with your respect, with your manners, and as a young player. That's what I mean when I say how we had such a good football upbringing. The things that I learned, if you take the coaching away, the things that I learned off the pitch, things that had been enforced to me from my parents, and they were being reinforced from my academy manager Paul when we went over there.
I find it really interesting because today we try and do that in academies with, it's decency, it's morals, it's manners. And today we almost have to sell that there with posters or showing the videos of people doing great stuff. And, how did Paul sell that to you?
Well, listen, it wasn't that he had to sell it to us. It was expected of us. He expected us to have the courtesy and to have the manners. He didn't. We weren't better than anybody else. We weren't better than the secretary that worked in the club or the dinner lady or anything like that. We were all in it together. So when he puts it across to you that way, there's no need to sell it to you. That's just human decency, and that's footballers are no better, and they're no worse than the normal person. So we, these were things that were expected of us when we came in, and as I said, they weren't really needed to be sold, especially to me because I had a really good upbringing. I was brought up with manners to treat people with respect. So for me, it was a continuation of it, and it was really enjoyable. And as I said, it was. It was stuff that stood me in good stead for my whole career. And he also, what he did, if you kind of move away from the off the field stuff, he kind of mirrored that on the field, on the training ground, and everybody around the academy, all the coaches, they all mirrored it, and to take it onto the training pitch. So those things that Paul was teaching us as kids that stuck with me, and that I found myself doing up until the last game that I ever played.
Looking then at Irish football, you were part of that generation who came third in the 97 World Youth Championship and then won the 98 European Youth Championship, both at 16 and 18s. When you look at that, you think, you forget about Ireland and you think about Portugal or something like that. But what was special about that group in terms of how they developed, and why have we not developed players as consistently as that since then?
Um, it's a really difficult one to put your finger on, and if I suppose if we had the answers to that, then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, me and you. We'd probably be running the FEI somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not as cut and dry as that. It's not as simple as that. There's a lot of factors go into it. I believe that generation sprang up from in and around the '88 European Championships and the 1990 World Cup. I believe that really got people into a buzz for football. A lot of kids were going out and playing football on the street after those games, and that helped develop players that we've seen in and around that period. And then you couple that Brian Kerr and Noel O'Reilly as a partnership, looking after those teams, nurturing those teams from a very young age, and keeping an eye on what was coming out was also a massive part of that. And then once you get all them things together, and then you get that group of people together, then there's an onus on the players then to buy into everything that Noel and Brian were trying to kind of impress upon us. The team spirit was second to none. We would have sing songs. The Irishness was really there. We were really close bunch of players. So we had ability. We had a great manager, an assistant manager. We had a good support team around us. We had an excellent group of talented players, and then we brought the team spirit for us. Then once we got into the tournament and everybody started spending more time with each other, we started feeling a lot more comfortable with each other. It just rolled on from there, and we got better and better as the tournament went on. And as you see from the games that we played, we beat Spain. You mentioned Portugal there. We beat Portugal 2-0 in the semi-final. They couldn't get close to us. And then we had a tough game against Italy in the final, but we managed to come out on top and beat them 2-1. So, you're talking about beating, three of the top nations in Europe. At their home game, so to speak, because we were playing really good, attractive, attacking football.
Yeah, that team spirit and togetherness was a hallmark of Irish football. It's seen from that, like you said, that era of Jack Charlton. Looked to be outside looking in, looked to be a big part of that team for sure. But curious to see whether you think there's a danger that we've swapped that team spirit and togetherness for fancy tactical systems these days.
Yeah, well, I do. I think it's kind of springs from the Trapattoni kind of stint. I think a lot of the team spirit and the camaraderie and the Irishness, I feel, was probably taken out of the Irish teams and replaced with, like you say, kind of tactical, a lot of tactical work, a lot of very rigidness. There wasn't very much room for people to express themselves, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you can't go and win games on team spirit. You need to be tactically aware, but you can have a bit of both, and I think that kind of went out of it with us. If you talk about the successful Irish teams and the teams that I played in, we were very tactically aware. We were set out, our formations were set out really well. Everybody knew their job. The work had been done on the training ground. But we also had that team spirit and that togetherness that maybe went out of the game in that went out of the Irish game in that period.
Sometimes, I look back when you're learning coaching, you're looking at different styles and then going back to the styles that you grew up watching. Sometimes I think if that Irish team from Charlton even had orange shirts and been called Holland, we would be raving about the pressing, or if there was a German team. Do you think we've suffered as an Irish culture, as an Irish football culture, from stereotype or Irishness, as you said?
Yeah, well, I say I think we have suffered at times, but we've also benefited from it as well because people have feared coming to play against us at times because they know that they were in for a tough game. So you can be stereotyped in a bad way, but if you look at it on the positive side of it, teams didn't want to come and play against us. They didn't enjoy playing against us, so that played into our hands in some respects. So, I think it's about finding the happy medium, which is always difficult. I think it's about getting that camaraderie, getting that team spirit, and if you can couple that then, obviously the tactical side of the game, the work that you do on the training ground. What formation are we going to play? What formation suits the team that we're going to play? Who fits into these formations? What tactics are we going to play? Are we going to press? Are we going to sit off? Are we going to let them have the ball? Are we going to pass out from the back? Or are we going to play a little bit more direct depending on who we're playing against? If you have all these different things within your armory, then you're able to adapt, and I think that's one thing that's very important within football, and I think it's very important for coaches to be adaptable, tactically adaptable, socially adaptable, be able to deal with players. How can I get the best out of him? And how can we, if we're playing against somebody who, if we press them really, really high up the pitch, we're going to get picked off. Okay, so we need to sit in and just bide our time and wait for that opportunity. Or if we're playing against somebody that, well, actually, we think we can get at these and we can win the ball up really high up the pitch, let's go and press them. Do you have to be one or do you have to be the other? I don't think you have to be one or the other. I think you can have all different types of ways of playing. And I think that's to do with a coach being tactically adaptable.
I saw you mentioned in one of your articles in the newspaper that the young players in Ireland today need safe players to develop into top flight players. Can you describe, what you think or how you feel those safe places, what that looks like?
Well, for me, what it looks like in my head is probably what in Dublin I would consider a five-a-side pitch, which there was a lot of them around in the 70s and 80s, and I know I used to go and watch my dad. My dad was a League of Ireland footballer, but he also played a lot of the five-a-sides in and around Dublin, and they were street footballers, so to speak, and they developed their technical skills a lot. In and around that, and there's some excellent players kind of came from that, and I see them as I see them as kind of places where in and around houses, in and around housing estates, but it's a safe place for people to play. It can be monitored. Kids don't feel it's not kids hanging around causing trouble. It's kids that are there to play football, and as I said, being monitored, I think is very, very important. I know that comes with a cost, but it also comes with its benefits as well. If you can create these environments for these kids, then I believe you will see the benefits of it in future years. And I think that is shown in Irish football at the moment that has gone out. We don't have that Robbie Keane. I mentioned Robbie Keane because he's probably one of the most instinctive footballers that I've ever played with or against. He's instinctive. Where do I go to score a goal? What's my movement? How can I do it? And yet you can learn them to a certain extent, but a lot of that is instinct that you kind of you develop from your very, very early days, in my opinion, of playing football out on the street. We used to go out at 9 o'clock in the morning in the summer holidays, put two jumpers down one end, two jumpers down the other, and play against the kids on my street would play against the kids from the street around the corner, and we learned to develop our skills, our technique. We learned to develop a winning mentality because we didn't want to lose to them kids from around the street. Which a winning mentality is obviously very, very important in football. So you can start to develop these things from a really, really young age before you even start getting any coaching. I think kids are missing that early stage now because they're in playing computers and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're not out playing football where they should be.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. What's the biggest threat to that safe place? Is it parents? Is it coaches? Or is it just society in general?
Well, I think it's society in general, but I also think that it can be easily rectified. Okay, it will take funding, it will take government funding, it will take the FEI to get on board to try and help create these safe environments, and then it's up to the parents. I mean, I hear so many parents moaning about their kids sitting in a bedroom playing on the PlayStation or the Xbox or wherever it may be. Well, I'm like, well, why don't you get them out and take them down football? Why don't you go out the back garden with your kid and play football? I'm constantly out the back garden with my son playing football. He's allowed to play his Xbox for probably a half an hour, three-quarters of an hour a day. I don't, for people who don't play, it might seem a lot, but a lot of his friends would probably play for 4 or 5 hours a day, And I say to him then, right, that's enough of the football. Out you come, back garden, let's go and play football. And if I'm being totally honest with you, I don't have to force him. If I'm sitting there watching the TV, he's coming into me and he's like, Dad, come on, game of football out the back. And it's kind of like a contract that you enter with your kid. If I'm telling him to get off his PlayStation to go and play football, then he can tell me to get off the sofa and go and play football with him.
Again, one of your quotes, this jumped out at me. At the very, very top, I think you find people who are ridiculously obsessive. A perfect example of that would have been Roy Keane, but I couldn't be like that. And I realised this quite early on in my career, and I don't apologise for that. And that in no way is me not being dedicated to football. I just couldn't live my life like that. I love football, I adore it, and when I'm playing, I give it everything to my manager, my team, and I hate losing. But there's other things in your life. Do you think we misinterpret that as a coaching community?
I think so. I think that football was my life. You know what I mean? Football always has been, but I needed things outside of football to be able to switch off, to switch my brain off. I needed that mental, but probably more so when I was playing. With coaching, I think it's different because you don't have the physical aspect of it. So with coaching, you can kind of fully immerse your brain into it without actually feeling physically kind of tired. When I was playing, and that quote goes for me when I was playing. When I needed to switch off, I needed a break, whether it be physically. I needed to totally switch off, so I needed other things. I needed to rest my brain and I needed to rest my body to get myself ready for the next training session or the next game. So that probably hasn't come out. Maybe how I meant it. Football was totally and utterly my life, but I needed other things to be able to switch off and I needed to switch off to be able to rest my brain and to rest my body to get myself ready and to be best prepared for the next challenge that came up.
In the US, so many coaches complain that kids today don't watch enough games and they don't watch enough away from training. But I was wondering, in your experience, is there any correlation between a top footballer and how much they watch and study the game?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't put a massive on it. I think it's important that a player wants to watch football for, I mean, I love watching football. I love watching a game. I always have. You turn on the TV and you want to watch a game. I'd watch any type of football if it's on. Um, I think what it is with the modern day player and especially the professional players, the higher you go up, there's so much video analysis in the game now. I think it's so when you're at the training ground, invariably every day you're going to be watching some sort of game. You're going to be watching either you're going to be doing an analysis for the game that you've played, or else you're going to be reviewing the game. You're going to be previewing the game that you're going to be coming up with. So there's always something that you're going to be watching there. So you've got a real overload there. Now, when you go back, sometimes it's nice to turn on the television and watch a game just for the enjoyment of watching a game and not to be having to be really switched on to every single thing, because when I'm watching if I'm watching a game and we're previewing a team or we're preparing for a team on the Saturday, I'm looking at the fullback. I'm like, right, what type of runs does he make? I'm looking at my centre forward. I'm thinking, right, how can you kind of counteract their centre half? So I'm looking at so many different things that your brain is always being engaged. So sometimes it's nice to be able to kind of have that break from the real engagement into it, but still watch it for the enjoyment. Because let's not forget, when we started playing football because we weren't doing it for tactics. We weren't doing it because we wanted to play 4-2-3-1 or we wanted to play 4-3-3 or we wanted to press high up the pitch. We played it, like I go back to, because we put two jumpers down one end, two jumpers down the other end. We played against the other lads and we had a game and we all enjoyed it and we loved it. If we scored a goal, it was great. So that's enjoyment. So I think it's very important that we keep enjoyment in football, watching it, coaching it and playing it.
Yeah, it brings me along nicely to the type of player you were: technical, creative, risk taker, wand of a left foot. Does it frustrate you that you played and now coach in an era that values the physical, tactical, and for a large part puts the genius of coaches ahead of sometimes the magic of the players?
Well, I disagree with you to a certain extent, and I'll give you a perfect example. If you look at Manchester City, when you look at Manchester City's most creative player, David Silva. Now Guardiola's gone in there and basically he's built that team around David Silva, and he's given him full license to go and do whatever he wants within the team structure. Now, David Silva is not a massively physical player. You look at Sergio Aguero in that team as well. You look at Bernardo Silva in that team as well. And I think this is a really good example of, I think we've got, you need the physical aspects to the game. I think that's very important, and it's getting more and more so because, people are getting fitter, people are getting faster. But the technical side of it, people can work on fitness and people can work on that, and you can work on technique, but natural ability and certain things that players do naturally. You look at David Silva, there probably wouldn't be. You can teach David Silva a little bit of positional sense, but you can't tell David Silva what he wants to do when he gets the ball or what he should do when he gets the ball. The guy is a genius, and Guardiola's realised that, and he's put him as a main focal point in his team. So I understand the point that you're making, and physical emphasis is put in. Is put. There's a lot more emphasis on it now, but I think there's still also a very very big influence by the technical players, and you find, and the good example of that is Manchester City. They're dominating everything. They're dominating games of football. Physically and technically, and some of the most technical players are the ones who are the difference.
Yeah, they're ticking every box, aren't they? Those types of teams.
Yeah, well, when you say those types of teams, there's not too many
There's
like
not a
Man
lot of them.
City, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. So they're probably in their own category at the moment, probably above everybody. And I don't, I don't think that I think that I could probably maybe have even thrived even more in this generation.
Oh wow. Yeah, because look, I would have thought, the era of the 80s. I would have thought that would have been an era that you would have killed it at.
Yeah. Well, listen, possibly, but I mean, I don't look at it as in, I don't look at it like that. I mean, I'm looking at the positive aspects of here and now, and that's what I see. You say that to me, and the first thing that comes into my head is, well, look at Manchester City.
Mm.
Look how technically good they are. Look how they want to play them through balls. Look how they want to take up positions to get on the ball. Look how they want to get into them pockets between full backs and centre backs, between midfielders and defenders. They want to get in them pockets. That was what I loved doing. If I was playing out wide, I loved going into that pocket in between the full back and the centre back. And I used to look at the full back and say, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to come and mark me? If he wants to come in and mark me, my full back will overlap and I'll play it, I'll throw the ball, I'll play it through a ball to him, or somebody else will slip him in. And then I know that the next time then, the fullback is going to be saying to himself, I can't really go in there, because if I go in there, then the fullback's going to overlap. So the fullback stays where he is. The opposition fullback stays where he is, and then I get the ball in a little pocket in plenty of space, and I'm able to create. So it's just little things that I see, and I see them happening now. These aren't things that that have gone out of the game. These are things that happen now, and that people are getting a hell of a lot of success with.
On that, when you listen to people like Graham Souness, they'll tell you that the game hasn't changed a lot from the 80s. But do you see the game when you watch the Man Cities? How do you interpret what they do in terms of 10 years ago?
Oh, listen, the game. Listen, the game has changed. Obviously, the game is always evolving. It has changed. It's changed. It changes all the time. It changes from season to season. So there's always, there's always things that are different. There's always things that are moving on. So for somebody to say that hasn't really changed, I think is wrong. Um, and I think that's where, that's where the top class coaches are coming into their own. They're finding new ways to defend better, to win the ball back, to attack better, to pass the ball better, to get in better positions, finding new formations. That's what you want from a coach is to be always be evolving and always learning, and when the coaches are always learning and they're feeding that onto the players, then the players are developing, and that means the game is changing. So the game is constantly changing.
What do you enjoy most about coaching?
Listen, if you strip it down to the bare bones, okay, the thing that I get the most pleasure from is when you work on something on the pitch, on the training pitch, and then you go into a game and you see it happening. Because that's what a coach wants to do, isn't it? A coach he wants to get, he wants to, what he's working on, he wants to get it out there on the pitch and see it happen. So that's the thing that you get the most pleasure from. I love being out on the pitch, and I love getting my point across to them, and I love using my experiences and being able to get my experiences to, whether it be young players or senior players, whatever it may be. It doesn't really matter. I love so I like being able to kind of put on a session and do something and then go over, and I know that what I'm doing has worked, because I've been there and I've done that, and it's nice getting your experience, so to speak, across to them.
Whenever we talk about coaching philosophies, we're always shaped in a large way by our experiences or by coaches we had ourselves. Which coach for you had the biggest impact on you?
Well, I would have to say Paul Hart. And obviously, I would say that. And I think probably one of the reasons why he did was because he started working with me from such a young age. So he was able to impact, because I think when you're younger, you're a bit like a sponge. You kind of take a lot more in than when you're older. When you're older, I think you kind of a lot of players go into this. Oh well, I know everything now anyway, you know. But I think when you're younger, you're always listening, you're always wanting to learn, and I think that was what Paul was really really good at, understanding that and getting the points across. So I think the coach that I took the most from would have been Paul, because as I said earlier on when we were chatting, there was things that a lot of stuff that Paul coached me and helped me with from a young age that I was still using till the very last game that I played.
That's a powerful impact, isn't it? Over that amount of time.
Yeah, well, listen, it is, and the funny thing is, a lot of them were very very basic things as well. Body shape when defending, positional sense, where can you be to receive the ball, body shape when receiving the ball. You know, what way do you receive the ball, passing the ball. You know, we worked in the U team. You know, Paul was tactically very very good, and but we worked on a lot of stuff that was really really basic, I'm like this as a coach now. I'm very, very big on the basics of the game. Don't take that 10-yard pass for granted, that 5-yard pass for granted. Make sure it's a good pass, because you're starting off the move. You're passing on time to somebody else. Then, when somebody does pass you the ball, watch your body shape. Is your body shape correct to go to where you need to go next? Where are you going to pass the ball to? So you need your body shape correct. So, you know, all these things, I see these as basics of the game. And when you say basics of the game to some people and to some coaches, I think they kind of look down their nose a little bit about it and think, well, I already know that. Well, I think you need to work on them basics of the game all the time. I really, really do.
Working with the Irish under 18s, is that a difficult age in terms of, them coming into the game and just being introduced to the money side of it and the finances that they're going to get?
I think they're probably not at that age yet. Where, I mean, some of them are earning, you know, decent money, as you know, as everybody knows now. But I don't think that's too much of an issue at the moment. Most of the lads that I've worked with, so far with the 18s, you know, they've really been good. They've been spot on. They've been willing to learn. They've been, you know, wanting to learn, wanting to get better, listening to what you say and taking it on board, and more importantly, trying to implement it when we do go out on the pitch. Because, as I said, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for what you do. There's no point in you working all week on something on the training pitch and then the lads going out on it for the game on a Saturday or whatever day may be, and not trying to do anything that you've coached. I mean, that's just totally useless. You know, you might as well have not spent the whole week doing that. So that's the aim, is to what you believe in what you're coaching, but also get the lads to believe into it. But to buy into it and believe in it. So when they do go out on the pitch on a Saturday, they can implement it, because that's what it's all about, is implementing it. It, I call it pointless coaching, if you just work on stuff just for the sake of it and it's got no relevance to the game on a Saturday.
Do you encourage those youth players to almost do the same as what you did in terms of take a step away from the game every now and again, have a balance in your life, or do you leave it to themselves to find that?
Well, I think everybody's different, you see, and when I spoke about how I was earlier on, that wasn't what every other player was like. That was what I felt I needed to get the best out of me. So every player is different. So I think and every player needs to find a way. You know, if somebody comes to you and they ask your advice, you give them your advice based on your experience. But you know, I'm very, very keen to stress that what might have been good for me and what might have suited me might not have suited everybody else. It wouldn't have probably suited everybody else. It'd be different. You know, everybody's different. Some people would have taken a lot more lax that kind of attitude to the game than me. Others would have been a lot more. You know, they'd have been a lot more intense and a lot more kind of on it and 24 hours a day. So you know, so there's different ways of going on, and not one way is right and not one way is wrong. So it's really difficult to say to a kid, or say to them, you need to do it this way. When you go home, this is what you need to do, because everybody has different ways of preparing, different ways of switching on, and different ways of switching off. You've just to try and give them the best advice that you think you can.
You had your differences with Trapattoni and the Irish setup, and without looking to get into the details of it, Was the biggest difference in tactics, style of play, methods of communication, or lack of communication? What caused the most tension?
Um, probably all of them, I would say. Um, I think it was quite obvious that I didn't. So you talk about tactically. First of all, I didn't fit into his style of play. He wasn't really interested in technical players, especially in the midfield area. So straight away, I didn't really fit into the way that he was into the way that he wanted to play. And listen, not all players fit into the way all managers or coaches want to play. So you kind of take that on board, whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it. You kind of take that on board. Now you move on to the communication aspect and lack of communication, and probably inability to communicate in the English language was probably part of it as well. If I had clear communication and he had come to me and said, "Listen, you're not going to fit into the way that I play," um, so you know there's probably no point in you kind of being in and around. Then maybe we could have kind of settled it, I suppose, amicably. But that wasn't really the case, and arguments kind of ensued, and it wasn't, and it ended up being messy the way it was, which was kind of disappointing, really. It's something that didn't really need to be, and that was the thing that probably disappointed me the most. Was that it was all made out to be, to be about arguments and to be about stuff away from football. When it all boiled down to football, it was all totally and 100% about football, and just the way he went about it, I totally disagreed with, and I let him know.
Last night you tweeted, "Great to see Luke Shaw playing with confidence and feeling like he can express himself okay on the pitch." How does a coach do that at that top level?
Well, I think there's probably a bit of both. I think there's a bit comes from the coach, but there's also a lot comes from a player. Um, and he's obviously had a really, really good off season. He's worked really, really hard in the off season, and he's had a really, really good pre-season. So he's come back and after his injuries and a poor season last season where he was in and out of the team. He's come back and he feels good physically. He's got over his injuries, he's got over all that, and he's thought, what, I'm going to have a real go here. And he's done well in pre-season, and kind of it starts off with a little bit, and then you play well. You get a couple of games under your belt, and then it grows and it grows and it grows. And you see him last night, and I was watching him last night, and the reason that I said that, I mean, I don't people, a normal supporter might not notice these things, but a player or an ex-player or a coach, when you're looking at these things, you look at first touch, you look at passes, you look at the way you pass the ball. Do you fizz it in or are you tentative with it? Luke Shaw fizzing balls in. He was playing 1-2s. He was getting in really good positions to receive the ball. Defensively, he was in really, really good position. So he just struck me as somebody with a lot of confidence, and it was really, really nice to see. And credit to him, because it's been a difficult period, and sometimes you don't always get the coach. If you ask me from a player's perspective, sometimes you don't always get the coach to help you with your confidence. Sometimes you've got to go and do it yourself.
And let's finish with creativity. You're into your music, you're writing poetry, Irish literature, James Joyce, Oscar Wilde, W.B. Yeats. We mentioned then about the type of player you were, the creative player. Really interested to see how do you find ways to be creative in your coaching?
Well, listen, studying is very, very important. Studying coaching, probably studying coaching is probably a lot more important than studying as a player. It's difficult to study as a player because everybody is quite individual. But as a coach, I really believe you can study. You can take on new ways of doing things. You can go and watch other people what they're doing and try and you can take some of the bits out of different sessions that coaches do, and then add your own flavour to it. And also one thing that I'm very, very keen on, and it's something that I've been doing quite a bit, is studying other sports. And in particular rugby. And what are the rugby lads doing? What are these elite rugby lads doing? What are these elite American footballers doing? What are these basketball players doing? These really, really top sports people throughout the world. What are they doing that we can take from their sport to make ours a little bit better? And as a coach, what can I add in there that might just give me that extra few percent from different sports. So studying and see what you can take from different areas. Be open minded to everything that's going on. And okay, you're not going to take everything on board. You're not going to want to take everything on board, but be open to it. What can I take on board from this? Or you could watch something and instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I can take that from this session," look and say, "Well, I know that I don't want to take this from this session." So it's not always about what you want to take. Sometimes it's about realising what you don't want to take as well.
And finally, the Liam Miller fundraiser in Cork on the 25th of September. There looks to be a huge response to it.
Listen, it's absolutely fantastic response. You know, it really, really is, because it's, you know, what has happened is a tragedy, and it's affected us all, you know, really, really deeply. And you know, it's kind of hits home. You know, it really does hit home. You think, oh, I've got three kids myself. Two of them are young. I've got a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old, and you know, and Liam has young kids. You know, and their father's been taken away from them, and it's such a tragedy. So to be able to mark it and to show our respects, and you know, it will be. You know, a very emotional occasion. I've no doubt about that whatsoever. But I'm also hopeful that it'll be a celebratory occasion as well, and we can celebrate the fantastic life and career that Liam had, and you know, and be able to show his family the respect that he had within the game.
Absolutely. First class. First class. Andy, thank you so much for this. Absolutely
No problem
brilliant.
at all,
Really
Gary.
enjoyed
No
it.
bother at all.
Great insight.
Yeah. No, it's been good, mate. It's been a good chat. It's been a good chat.
Thanks so much to Andy for his time and his insight there. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. A couple of takeaways from me. I thought right from the start, the impact of his youth coach at Nottingham Forest, Paul Hart, was really, really powerful. We think of great academy coaches as people who can take them as players and do this with them and do that with them and develop them physically, technically, but it's great to hear Andy give an insight into how he developed him as a person. And it's almost as an extension, as he said, from his parents. Those things that we sometimes take for granted, the humility, the manners, being interested about other people, being selfless. I don't think there's a coincidence that Andy was so generous with his time there, and he came across really, really well. And that grounding is so important from youth coaches as well as parents. So I think from that their side, I think it's really, really important what he's saying, that we have to be adaptable all the time, and every coach is nodding and saying, yeah, adaptable, give me the next tactical book, give me the next clips that I need to be watching. But we also have to be adaptable socially, as he says, to be able to deal with individuals and to be able to prepare them individually, rather than just say we have to be doing this and we have to be doing that. The goal is not for every player to be the same. The goal is not to develop 2,000 Xavis, as nice as it would be. The goal is to develop good, well-rounded people who are at different stages of every form of development, as people, as athletes, and as soccer players too. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was great. You can hear how passionate he is about that there, and I'm excited that he's bringing that insight to the Irish game. Curious to hear from Irish coaches. Just it's a time at the minute where there's question marks that are asked about the game at the senior level and the youth level as well, and curious to hear what people's thoughts are. You know, these podcasts are about culture and about the value of opening your minds to different types of culture, and what we should maybe take from other cultures, and maybe what we should appreciate more about other cultures. And that's what I learned from this. I'm from Northern Ireland. I haven't lived at home since 1999, but I want to look at this more as, are we looking abroad? Are we looking internationally? Are we looking around the world to develop better players? Or are we looking to take those things and to personalise them in our own culture, and to make better Irish players, better players from Northern Ireland, and improve our national teams? And how can we improve the collective and the individual as well? Because I think he said that was the inspiration for the team of himself and Robbie Keane and Damien Duff as youth players, was the success of the 1990 Ireland team, the 1994 Ireland team. So I think it's really important that countries have success at the World Cup level, because it's going to inspire the next generation. So yeah, I would love to hear from people, from Irish people and people maybe from outside Ireland who have visited, or people who are keeping an eye on it. to have their ideas and their insight as to what can improve, and maybe taking some stuff from Andy as well. So like I said, really excited that he's involved in the game, and can't wait to see his coaching path. I think he's got an awful lot of great stuff to be providing the young players back home as well. So thanks so much to him. As always, would love to hear your thoughts on that there. Please let me know. At Gary Curneen on Twitter, at Gary Curneen on Instagram, email gary@modernsoccercoach.com. Always love hearing what resonated with coaches, what you enjoyed, what you agreed with, maybe what you didn't agree with, but just talking points in general, and keep the conversation going. So thanks so much to Andy. Hope you enjoyed it. Please, without leaving, please give it a rating on the iTunes page. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. For more coaching topics, sessions, and resources, head on over to Coach Curneen on Facebook or visit the website at www.modernsoccercoach.com.